Thank you. So, this information session is all about ARC Lab, which is our newest program, otherwise known as Advancing Canadian Capability in Defense and Security Markets. It's being run from our organization Alacrity Canada, which I'll go into in a second. And we've been generously supported to do this work through PacifiCan or Pacific Economic Development Canada and Innovate BC. So very fortunate to have those partners with us. First and foremost, I want to make sure that we acknowledge that Alacrity Canada has a couple different offices. Our head office is located on the traditional and unceded territories of the Lekwungen speaking peoples and the Sanghees and Esquimalt First Nations. With respect, we really appreciate the longstanding relationship that both the Lekwungen and nearby Wasanic peoples have had with this land and water and are grateful for the stewardship and care they've exemplified since time immemorial. We also want to acknowledge that our second office is located in the unceded ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. These nations also have been stewards of this land for time immemorial, and we're very, very fortunate to operate across these regions, otherwise known as Victoria and Vancouver. And so with that, I want to dive quickly in about who Alacrity is, Alacrity Canada. And we are a national nonprofit who supports entrepreneurs. And how do we do that? We do that by developing and delivering really responsive, market-driven programs that are specifically designed for entrepreneurs and for their companies that they're building, with the ultimate goal to really help Canadian innovation scale, not just in one region, but in many regions. We strongly believe that, innovation really starts with the entrepreneur. And so we're always closely listening and in relationship with entrepreneurs from the very beginning of getting their idea off the ground to the point where they're scaling their business, when they're thinking about exits. Like, our role is really to provide that support from beginning to end. And this is a quick snapshot. I'm not going to go into this in detail. It's a quick snapshot of the many programs that Alacrity has run over the last 15 plus years in BC, starting with the very first Alacrity Entrepreneurship Program, all the way to the most recent programs such as APEX, which is our Advanced Pathways to Export program, as well as, of course, ARC Lab. And again, I want to emphasize the key parts here is really that focus on, like, what do entrepreneurs really need? What does innovation really mean to entrepreneurs? And how do we then support an entrepreneur's journey to make sure that they feel like they have all the tools, all the knowledge, all the skills, and all the supports around them to be able to scale great companies in Canada? And so we make sure that we do that. And we've done that also with ARC Lab. So why ARC Lab? And I'm pretty sure none of you are here because you don't know what, defense necessarily is or what dual use is. You've probably heard about the Canadian government's focus and priority around funding and innovation in the defense space, and in particularly thinking about what does that actually mean for Canada from a resilience perspective, from a sovereignty perspective, what role do we play as a country, and certainly how do we then engage our own innovators, founders, companies, and organizations within Canada to actually be able to lead the charge on defense and security market innovation. And there's been a lot of funding and a lot of support of late that has come into this space that traditionally, from a startup ecosystem perspective, has probably been overlooked. And so now we see this focus in the defense and security market space. And we believe that there are a lot of innovators, a lot of entrepreneurs in Canada and specifically in British Columbia that are already developing innovative technologies that are developing really great companies. They might not necessarily be in this space or might not be developing for the defense market yet, but certainly their technologies and what they're working on could be applicable in many different types of scenarios. And that's why we really want to focus on, what is dual use and how do we actually provide that opportunity to many of the innovators that we have in our country. And so this is where, this idea of Arc Lab was born. How do we create the opportunities and the spaces to help our entrepreneurs enter into defense and security markets with the knowledge, with the resources, with the support that they need to be able to navigate this sometimes complex world that's very relationship driven, that is often, hasn't been as open to everybody because it just hasn't been as highlighted in the past decades that we've seen the emergence of the entrepreneur and seen the emergence of the startup world and ecosystem. And so in our session today, I will cover give you a bit of an overview of Arc Lab, the structure of the general program, of the components of it. We'll dive into our Arc training. We will also talk about the amazing people that are part of the delivery of this program and have also helped us develop the program. That's really important for us. We will also talk about our services arm, and then we'll talk about some events, and then we'll have plenty of time for your questions that you might have for us. So first off, Arc Lab really is at the core about helping entrepreneurs shorten the path to success in defense and security markets, and in helping you gain the knowledge, gain the skills, perhaps be able to apply some of this thinking into your own scenarios, and then actually be able to do it in real life, to actually build for defense and security markets. And so the first component of Arc Lab is what we're calling Arc Lab dual use training. And that's essentially our 6-month boot camp, where we work with companies over that period of time to really help them not only gain the knowledge of what we're talking about when we talk about, the defense landscape, or what we're talking about when we're talking about TRL levels in dual use scenarios, but really, what does that all mean? And then how do you actually navigate that within your own business to be able to attain some of these larger government contracts or engagements with prime contractors? Um, Again, it's not just about the knowledge, but it's also about the doing. So as we dive into it, we'll talk about what that means from how we create the application part of that programming. We also, as part of the training, are going to be delivering a couple demo days here on the West Coast, as well as in Ottawa. We'll talk about those in a little bit. And then the third part of Arc Lab is our Arc services. And those are our ongoing engagements with companies that are perhaps a little further along or need that additional deep dive support in helping them actually attain one of these larger or multiple contracts with government, or perhaps with not just government here in Canada, but potentially with allied nations as well. And so that services component is much more in depth and much longer in term, and it's not just a boot camp. We'll talk about that in a second as well. So let's talk about our dual use training first.
You need it.
Yep. If we could just mute everybody. Oh. If you've got questions in the meantime while I'm talking as well, please just pop them into the chat. We will get to all of them. The first part, as I mentioned, of Arc Lab is our 6-month boot camp, which the first one starts in April. I see some familiar faces that I know we've talked to about that. Thank you, Carly. Awesome. Thank you for muting everybody. And yes, if you are I know you're probably in front of your computer doing lots of different things. Just make sure you mute yourself. No shade for doing multiple things. We're multitaskers, all of us. All right, so dual use training. So this is our 6 month boot camp, very much focused on really gaining the knowledge of what it means to enter into the defense and security markets, whether it's here domestically or with another allied nations or multiple ones. What does it actually look like? And then how do you prepare your company to do so successfully? And so within that 6 months, we cover a whole range of topics. The way our program is designed and organized is through a 12 module journey, ending in our demo days in the fall this year. But it really starts with understanding and mapping out the defense and dual use landscape as it exists here in Canada, but also internationally. What does it mean to work in this space? And then who are the organizations and funders that exist in this landscape that are here to support Canadian innovators? We then move on into dissecting and helping our companies navigate what does defense procurement actually look like and what does it mean to be successful in one of these procurement opportunities or challenges. And how do you then construct a bid strategy where you are successful? Everything from thinking about your own value proposition as a company in from an organizational perspective, but potentially from like a dual use specific product perspective. We also look at, as we start moving through our modules, we start looking at very important components such as your compliance, cybersecurity, and controlled goods requirements. For companies, depending if you're on hardware or software, those will differ, but just as important, we'll also spend a considerable amount of time thinking and doing our work around the technology readiness and integration pathways, so our TRLs, which are a very critical part in the defense space. And so understanding your own pathway there and how you can actually move forward within that pathway. If you've never heard of a TRL, this is a really important framework for you to get to know, particularly if you're building technology and you're trying to get funding or support from the Canadian government. We also dive into what does it mean to build a partnership with government, with D&D, with potentially a prime contractor or a larger operator in this space. How do you build that partnership? How do you negotiate with that partner? And certainly, how do you then enter into a relationship with that partner from a contract perspective? We also cover topics such as cyber and data sovereignty. What does that mean in a defense system or defense scenario here in Canada and globally? We touch upon manufacturing, infrastructure, digital systems, et cetera. And so a very wide range of topics there, really trying to cover all possible scenarios. And then towards the latter part of our boot camp, we really start diving into what does it actually mean to then run this business, right? If you're going to be in the defense and security market, what does that actually mean? What do you need to think about from a financial readiness and management perspective? How does that actually look like for you in order to be able to sustain your operations over not just a year, but multiple years? What does responsible leadership actually mean in defense innovation? A very, very important topic. We certainly don't want to gloss over because it's critical, not just in Canada, but globally. And who are you as a leader, and what does ethical leadership look like for you? We're going to touch on things like ESG and other requirements that not some, but like government and contractors actually have. And how do you then align with that? And of course, we're going to touch upon export sanctions, the global market, and because we know we don't live in a silo or a vacuum, we live in a big global world. And if you're going to be serious about entering this market, there are opportunities domestically, but also internationally for you. And then, of course, we're going to end in a demo day. And so I've just, listed off all these topics and the type of areas that we're going to focus on. But what's important to note is the way that we're structuring these modules. So as I mentioned, we've got 12 modules. Each module is designed as a sprint on that particular topic. In the first week of that sprint, we're going to introduce the topic. We're going to have speakers. talk about that particular topic or facets of that topic. Everybody from entrepreneurs, investors, our government partners, funders, etc. But we're also in that first week going to introduce an activity, a case study, a way to actually apply this concept in your own business at that moment in time. And then as we dive into the second week, we're going to spend more time in the doing of how do we actually think about preparing your own business to enter into this market. Everything from you know, exercises, webinars, simulations, as well as labs. And things like bid simulations, ethics lab are some of the things that we've got planned for you. So each module looks a bit different in terms of, what are the topics obviously that we're covering, but also the types of the ways that we're delivering that, and then certainly the type of activities that we're engaging with you. Each of the modules ends with an opportunity to have open office hours with either a panel of our advisors or one of our specialist advisors. So it's very exciting to actually get in front of these incredible folks that are part of our community that have experience, I would say most of them internationally in this space. And so we want to give a quick sort of profile of the type of company that's probably the right fit for the training component. You are curious about this sector, although you might already maybe be selling maybe this sector, but maybe you haven't scaled your company, or maybe you want more support. You want to have a depth of knowledge. You have a product or service that potentially is scalable. Always. There's a technology element there, and you're looking to expand to new markets. I should also say that, like, as you could be a business, you could also be an organization. We've had some folks that are, dev units, et cetera, that are interested in this. Our training is really focused, how do we actually think about this from an economic perspective? And certainly, like, there's different hybrid models of structuring that. So we'd welcome all of you to come and have a conversation with us to see if this could be a really good value for you. You have a leadership team or a leader in place to be able to grow into this new market. And ultimately, like, you've got a willingness to commit to participate in the work that we are doing with Arc Lab. Again, a lot of this programming is intended to help entrepreneurs and to really meet you where you are. Like, what are your needs in entering into this market? And certainly this programming has been developed with the incredible input, and we'll introduce him in a second, from one of our serial entrepreneurs that has been in this space, and really, like, weaving in all the needs that he wished he had when he was starting his companies in the defense and security market. And so we're always really eager to meet everybody and understand what everybody's needs are, but we really want folks to also show up. And there is an opportunity a little bit to sort of like weave in and out of the training, depending on where you are with your business, and perhaps some of the areas that, we cover, like, you already have, like, you figured out and you're solid on, but there's other areas where you really need support, or you need advice, or you need to meet other experts in. We certainly are open to that as well. And so the training, again, pretty exciting. We start our first cohort, not next cohort. First cohort feels like next one because we've been developing it for a bit, but our first cohort starts in April. And I do want to introduce our incredible team. And so there's me. My name is Joanna Buchkowska-McCumber. I'm the VP of Strategy and Impact with Alacrity Canada. And my role specifically with Arc Lab, and my experience over the last close to 20 years, has been really in helping build out entrepreneurial programs and experiences for those entrepreneurs to be able to grow and scale their companies. And so I've been brought in to help develop this program and really help get everybody in it and really figure out how do we help entrepreneurs on this pathway to the defense and securities markets. I have a very specific specialization around ESG and impact, and so I'll also be coming into this program as an ESG and impact advisor on figuring out, how do we navigate responsible leadership? What does it mean to be ethical in this space? And certainly really looking forward to being part of those conversations with many people. I also want to introduce Carly Dorr. She's our venture community lead here at Alacrity with our Apex program and certainly here with ARC, and she's helping us navigate this info session. So she is here, and I also love to introduce Ariel White. She's our lead facilitator for the ARC Lab. Very lucky to have her, and I'd love for her to just come off mute and say hello very quickly. And maybe tell us a tiny bit about yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to meet you all. My name is Ariel, and I am the facilitator that's going to be supporting you through the ARC Lab program. My background is actually in marketing and media, which led me into tech. And being in the startup environment, I ended up wearing a lot of hats and getting exposure to many parts of the tech development growth process for a company that was working in the defense and military space. And so for the last 6 years, this has kind of been my niche. I actually worked for a startup alongside Carl, who I'm sure will introduce himself next. He's here with us today. And I focused on kind of how to take this really technically strong product and support my team in making it viable in defense and public sector markets. I was part of the marketing team that supported that company through the acquisition. And so through that process, I just learned so much. And ever since, I've been kind of working on a consulting basis with many other tech startups that are either in the very early stages or, consultants that are working in the defense and military space or other companies that are a bit more mature, and just supporting them kind of in navigating those markets and understanding where your product fits within existing systems, figuring out how to communicate the value to your buyers, who are highly technical and operating within those complex procurement structures. So, I've worked in the public sector environment alongside companies trying to break into it. So I'm pretty versatile in that space. And we bring a lot of experience to the team. And one thing that's become very clear to me over the last 6 years is that our network really is kind of the thing that supports us. And so we're really excited to bring forward subject matter experts that, we've met throughout our time in this space that have helped us, and most notably Carl as well. I'm sure he'll want to share more about that, but supporting you with everything from refining how you position your product in the space to understanding your end user, navigating and writing an RFP, identifying the right entry points. So we've got somebody who is really ready to kind of support you through every process or every part of the process. And by the end of this, we hope that you'll not only have strength in your product and your skill set and how to talk about it, but you'll have met a lot of people that can really support you moving forward even after this program ends. So really excited to meet all of you and chat with you, and always feel free to reach out to me either via LinkedIn or email. So thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Ariel. Very lucky to have you. And then I'm gonna introduce Carl Swanee, who has been our defense advisor, but has been instrumental in helping us develop ARC Lab. So would love for you to, as he knows, him and I have had many conversations about this. So maybe introduce yourselves and maybe also talk about like your motivation for how you developed this program.
Okay, well, very nice to meet you all. Thank you, Joe. My name's Carl. I come from 25 years of working in tech, particularly SaaS-based businesses. I'm typically a business builder. I come from working with geographic information systems, so largely map making. And in that particular instance, we actually, when Ariel was a part of this, we actually developed a company that mapped social media, and we sold that into defense and public safety and critical infrastructure support for about 12 years. And in the end, we mapped about 250 different types of social media, about 1 billion social posts every day, about 100 billion social posts every day came in, about 100 million of those we could put on a map. So if you wanted to find a missing child, a rhino poacher in Africa or whatever you happen to be looking for, we were the type of people that you needed to talk to. We learned very clearly through that entire process of how to do things that were completely compliant with regulations and rules and laws that existed in the land, including privacy, sovereignty, and residency laws. That was part of our learning process. Another part of our learning process, of course, was how to do business with these larger organizations. And our particular vector was to go to the US primarily and then to the UK. And we actually ended up doing business with all of the Five Eyes, but Canada wasn't the first. They thankfully were not the last purchasers, but we did take advantage of all of the programs. Unfortunately, Canada was not one of the early adopters of our product. All that being said, Canada's whole mission in the last 6 months has completely changed. I think their goal right now is to have 70% of contracts going to Canadian businesses by 2035. When I was doing my business, it was 43%. So that's a huge increase and a huge amount of money that's coming down the pipe towards businesses like yours. I want to make sure that you have access to all of the programs that are available and that are coming online, and that you stay in contact with this group, because there's going to be more and more, and there's going to be a lot of changes. Your path to success is going to be very different than our path to success, but it's critical that at least you know who to reach out to and what kind of questions to ask to be able to access the capital that is being put forth by the government, by industry, being asked for, around the world, actually, if you look at some of the NATO contracts that are out there. And we are perfectly aligned to do this. And there's a lot of commercial technologies that I see when I go out to places like, the web summits of the world that would align exactly with what's being asked for by the Canadian government right now and by other governments right now, because they're not necessarily looking for, certain political software or hardware. They're looking to rebuild and create new systems so that they have some sort of industrial sovereignty. So was my goal in helping to create these 12, helping being part of creating all of this, is just to ensure that you have a flavor for all of the things that you might need to know. Export control laws, who's good at Export Canada. They're all good, by the way. But there's certain groups. I will say my skills have shifted over the years, so please don't ask me any questions about geographic information systems. I am now very good at speaking lawyers, bankers, and accountants, and that's kind of where I come from. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Carl. That is great. Truly, entrepreneur programming developed with entrepreneurs in mind and developing it with us. So I want to quickly dive into just talking about ARC services and how that's a little different than our training a part of ARC Lab. And why that's the case and what the purpose of it really is. And ARC Services is very much designed as long-term engagement with a select group of companies that really need that comprehensive, integrated support. Our role as an organization is really to, be the connectors, be the ones that pull all the right resources in front of you. Whether that's helping you steward relationships or partnerships or finding the right investors or even finding the right space, that is really like our role. And ARC Services is, again, like an ongoing program. And so we're already in conversation with several companies that are sort of at this stage where they need more integrated, more in-depth support in helping them scale their companies into these defense and security markets. And I do want to emphasize that it's not always just in Canada. Many of those companies are looking internationally in terms of their scale and scope. And so why do we do that work is because our network through Alacrity, the Alacrity global ecosystem, is truly global. We've got partnerships and organizations, and in fact, like other Alacrities around the world that we work with. And that network is quite interesting and quite expansive. And we're very fortunate to be able to pull some of those folks into the programming, but also into the support roles for the companies that are, seeking support in various parts of the world, like Europe or different parts of Asia. And so for the services part, that venture profile, and again, this is just a profile. We're always open to conversations with companies and founders to see where the fit is, if there is a fit, and if we've got the right and necessary supports to be able to provide value to you as a company. And also it's a bit of like matchmaking, right? If we all get along, is this the right like relationship to build? And so for our services, we are looking for companies that are typically, typically, I say, because it's not always the case, but typically they're revenue generating. They might already be in some of, working loosely in the defense and security market. They might already have built some of these relationships. They might already be delivering some of this, but they are really interested in figuring out, how do I scale in the context of, the new reality that we all live in? How do I scale my business and really take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of all of us? And so we are, again, looking for scalable products and services. We are looking for predominantly BC-based companies that are trying to expand their markets. We are, for this program, for the services program in particular, we are looking for companies that have leadership teams that are really able to show that they have the capability to grow and grow quickly. And they might not have all of the facets of that in place, but they do have some capabilities here, whether it's financial or team or technology wise. We're looking really at companies that are really ready to scale. And really take action on the opportunities that might be presented to them, right? In terms of like a new procurement opportunity or a challenge, et cetera. We are looking at technology companies at large in various different, from hardware to software, in all sorts of areas. We do have a bit of like a partial alignment to some of folks that are in the sustainability, clean tech, circular economies, and industrial transformation, and some in health tech, based on some of the history that we've had as an organization working in this space, having run multiple clean tech programs. But we're definitely open to many different companies that are building technology in the defense and security markets, and are even thinking about like, how do I bring my successful technology into this market, right? You might be already building a company, you might be successful in having grown that company in a different market, and are now thinking about whether the defense and security markets are actually the right opportunity for you. And so again, this might be a great way to work with us in more depth. I saw some questions even, in the questions that were sent to us ahead of time of like, what is like, why should we even think about dual use, support or advisors? And really, like, if you're really looking at defense opportunities and it is a dual use situation, it would be like entering any new market or building a new business, really. If you don't have that experience or knowledge in that particular sector, it's always super helpful to have somebody that has built and maybe invested or exited in that space. And so really that's the role of our defense and then dual use advisors, to really help our companies navigate the complexities and the decision making much quicker. And so we've got we'll jump into questions fairly quickly here, but I just wanted to highlight some of the incredible companies that we've had the fortune of working with and continue working with. One of the companies that we've known for quite a bit of time is Open Ocean Robotics, that we continue working with. Julie Angus and her team have been incredible in the work that they do, and certainly dual use is one of the areas that they're expanding into. And so here's a quick snapshot. Again, this is not a holistic view of everybody that we've ever worked with. We've worked with uh, quite a lot of companies through the various programs that I mentioned, but this is a quick snapshot of some of the companies that are in particular looking at dual use applications with their products. Some of them much further along than others. Of course, Carl also mentioned his company. I know he had a very long history of Alacrity as well. Again, we came out of this like clean tech, climate tech world, but the space of defense and security opportunities is quite large. And at the end of the day, it is built about building companies that are good companies to scale. And what does that really mean? And how do we build those in all sorts of markets, both here in Canada and globally? And that is why we're here building out this program and delivering it is because we believe, we we strongly, believe that there's a huge opportunity for Canadian innovators and entrepreneurs to build great companies and to continue growing them here in Canada and well beyond our borders. Here is a quick snapshot, an example of a company that we worked with in our clean tech program. Ocean Floor Geophysics had a great advisor that is also our dual use advisor for this ARC Lab program that ended up actually playing a role as a chair of their board after a little while. But that company with its subsea solutions ended up expanding internationally and being able to actually attain quite a few contracts in the global ecosystem, particularly in India, and was then able to actually successfully exit its position. And has since actually been able to sort of restructure and has continued to scale in its new form, and actually has developed very strong opportunities in the dual use defense space, and is currently working with the British Navy. And our advisor that is in our program continues to work with this company, and so we're excited to actually have him and obviously have this company also share their story within what is happening with ARC and the opportunities and the many different decisions that you as an entrepreneur may have to navigate as you scale into this industry. And so quickly before we jump into questions, I wanted to just talk about our timelines and about like what happens next. We'll have an email and a QR code for you at the end to really talk about if you have further questions for us, you want to have further discussions or meetings, we're more than happy to meet with any company that is interested in ARC Lab. At the same time, if you're like, I'm ready, I want to apply right now, we can do that as well. But again, our first ARC dual use training cohort is going to start in April. April 7th being the week of our onboarding, and then our first module officially starting the week of April 14th. We will have our next intake and in the fall with a start date in February 2027. We will also, as I mentioned earlier, our ARC demo days, our opportunity to really showcase West Coast innovators that are either going through our ARC training program or are in our ARC services program at our demo days. And the goal of demo days is really to be able to showcase the innovation that's happening on the West Coast. And that is why we have chosen to actually do that right, in Vancouver, and we'll do that in the fall of 2026, as well as spring 2027. But we're also wanting to do that in Ottawa. We love our, Canadians all across the country, but sometimes they forget about us all the way on the West Coast. So we want to make sure that we bring the talent and the innovation that's happening out here to Ottawa to be able to showcase the incredible companies and technologies and entrepreneurs that are leading the pack. And then again, our ARC services are ongoing. So again, if you're interested or curious about working with us, please give us an email. More than happy to have a meeting. So we've got a couple FAQs. I know there's lots of questions in the chat, so I'm going to make sure we're going to get to all of them. There's a couple that some of you sent in ahead of time. And so first I want to maybe we'll leave them on the screen. The first and more important one, I do want to talk about cost, as this is a question that comes up quite a lot from everybody. Our training program, obviously everything has a cost, but it is fully subsidized for all our participants. So that 6-month boot camp is subsidized for all entrepreneurs and their teams to be part of, which is really exciting for us to be able to deliver that to everybody that needs it. Our ARC services do have a fee related to them, but it is like a subsidized fee and dependent on that company's scale and stage. And their specific needs. So those are like customized engagements. But if you're interested in that, come and talk to us. Would love to I want to just, I am going to try to read all the questions in the chat, but if anybody's got a question, and maybe, that you want to ask, please come off mute and ask it. And no
I
one?
can jump off mute and ask the questions
Okay.
in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
I've been answering most of the ones that I've been able to, but we had one that, will there be introductions to defense experts and actual defense buyers as part of the program?
Yes. So the key part of the program is the folks that will be talking to you in the program will be experts in their space. So either they are in defense, in security, coming from government or internationally. So you'll have an opportunity to, of course, listen to them, but also ask them questions. And so they'll be there in the training. And again, there'll be lots of different formats of that, of getting in front of those experts. Yeah, and the program really, the training component of the training program is really developed to make sure that, it's not just some program that you listen to at home and you never talk to a human. There will be some resources and videos that you can watch on your own time, and certainly you can watch recordings at any given time. But we want to also make sure that, as Carl said, you get it, you get, and Ariel, they both said it, like start building these relationships in this ecosystem, because I mean, like many ecosystems, but especially this one, it's so relationship driven, and we want you to get in front of these folks. Owen, I see your hand up.
Hi. So we have two technologies that came out of the Ideas program. One was from a successful award, and then the other was for an application that administrative error on our side didn't go through. But we kind of kept developing that and getting good feedback from DRDC and a couple members in the forces. One is at a higher TRL level than the other. Neither's commercialized. If we're making an application, what would be the like essentially right now what we're doing is I was at DefSec West last week trying to talk with end users and people within the forces to see where is the demand for this, but we haven't nailed down X technology has more demand, therefore let's go into that first. So if we were to make an application, is there any recommendation to go with like a higher TRL technology or yeah, just kind of curious as to your thoughts there. If we have two technologies.
I'd love to talk to you more about this. Actually, probably this isn't the proper place to have it, but I mean, have you reached out to any of the ITB guys or the ISED programs to get your technology on the pathway for procurement?
We haven't gone far, or I don't think we've really gone down an ISED route. We've kind of not had a clear indication as to that. I've talked with some tier 2, tier 3 suppliers where maybe the ITB, discussion starts coming in. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, it would be great to talk offline further about this.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I mean, if you have a TRL level that's not, I mean, it makes a difference if you're applying for ITB. Sometimes they can get higher multiples or something along those lines. I'm not the expert in this. I'm bringing in a friend of mine we are bringing in a friend of mine who's an actual expert in all of that. In the years of doing business, I knew about ITBs, but really, to be quite honest with you, what I've seen is that they've just kind of opened up in the last, again, 6 months, and so there's a lot more availability there. They've always been the people on the ITB list, for instance, have always been a great source of like validation and conversation, and they're really good people, and I love having those conversations with them. But I personally haven't gone too far down that pathway. Whereas some of the people we have coming on board to talk about certain modules have had direct contact, and I would love to just put you in contact with those people, and you can, among many other things. But I would certainly look into ISED and probably Export Development Canada as well.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I sent you a connection on request.
Okay,
LinkedIn,
perfect.
So take that conversation further.
Favorite, yeah, yeah, and exactly. I mean, Carl answered it, and the hope is that as you well, hopefully come into the trading and you get in front of some of the folks that are experts in this space and can help answer all of those important questions that you might have about how to navigate this for yourself. Yeah, thanks, Owen. Okay. Any other questions? Carly, you've got, I see lots.
Yeah.
Most
are answered.
Okay.
There was one that was a great one for you, is how do we measure success? In other words, what's in it for ARC Labs?
Great question. Look, I'll sort of give you some of the maybe some KPIs that we're always looking at Alacrity, but then also I would say from like a vision perspective of, our success is measured based on I would say like the volume and the quality of the success of the entrepreneurs we support. And so it's not just like about the numbers of entrepreneurs, but it's like, what's the quality of their success? Have they really reached the goals that they've set out for themselves? We get excited when entrepreneurs that are part of our programs are able to achieve the goals that they've set for their business and themselves. So certainly we're always following our entrepreneur stories. And this is why we always talk about ourselves like we want to be the number you call when you're having a challenge or a question and you're like, I need to figure this out. We might not have the answer to that question, but we are going to figure out who you need to be talking to and how you can figure that challenge out, right? And so we certainly pride ourselves on that. And then I would say with ARC Lab specifically, our success metrics are the companies that we're supporting, whether they're in the training part or in the services part, are they successful in entering the defense and security markets? What, again, is the size and quality of the contracts or engagements that they're having? And then ultimately then what's the growth of their business, right? Everything from how many investment dollars have they been able to bring in? Have they been able to increase their R&D dollars as well? Have we also been able to see more employees flowing into that particular sector or that company, right? So we're definitely looking at it from that perspective. It's, our focus, and certainly my focus, is how do we help companies grow and how do we help those founders grow as well? I think it's not just always about the company, but also the founder or the founding team that's there.
I have a
great question. Great question. Thank you. Oh, Roxanne. Hello.
Hi, Joanna. Nice to meet you again. Hi, everybody. My name is Roxanne. I have a business called LTO Munitions. So we make training ammunitions for policing and law enforcement and for military. So we were at the DevSec last week as well. I get a chance to talk to the IDEA programs and also other programs that get related under the Canadian government pavilion. So there's no straight answer for me, as I want to present my product and my technology to have a field test, as the idea programs is as they mentioned, is more focused on what the DND wants, and they will put up the challenges specifically for what they required right now. I asked if there's any chance that they can test our technology. They said probably no. So my question is, as Joanna mentioned, that we have a demo day, and is there any chance that they have a field testing day, because I don't know, I'm not sure if all the tech companies here they have a software, but I'm building a hardware.
Field testing day. Okay.
Yeah, so that's my question.
I love it. I see a field trip though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because we actually talked to people there and had their background, especially a BDC. They have a military background. They see the potential of our applications, and it's just really hard to find a way and to showcase that it's working and it's applicable. Yeah.
Have you tried the ISED Pathways to Commercialization program?
No, I got a card from the government representative there, and he mentioned that he said, "Well, I'm not 100% sure that your request will pass to the person that responsible for this one, but he said he's going to try it." So that was the ISED part. But yeah, I'll be willing to if there's any chance that I can communicate with them directly. And we have a very approved technology that can be utilized in training.
Okay. And have you tried partnerships with any of the other vendors that would be at something like DefSec?
Not yet. Well, the CAE took our testing kit, and Callian is also under the conversation with us. But still, this is kind of like an early stage. They never know that's us existed. So they're like, "Oh, so you guys are Canadian companies?" Yes, we are, for over 8 years now, and we want to get involved. And so it's just kind of started a conversation, but we'd love them to see how that works, because I brought them a product and they're still kind of confused with the technology. So I think that's the field testing would be the best option for me.
Yeah. There's certainly pathways there. I mean, we'd have to kind of take this a little bit offline. And there's certainly people I know Chris Pogue just became the CEO of Callian he used to be at Palace. He's a great guy. I've always had very good responses back from him, especially if we present him with a video or something and he loves coming out here.
Okay, cool.
From what I gather. So, there's always a pathway.
Awesome. I just connected with Jay, so I haven't opened up the conversation yet. So he is I assume he's the defense sectors and then related to communicating with those tools. So I'll definitely follow up with you later on. And thank you.
Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Thanks.
So thank you for that question, Roxanne. Other questions that folks might have? You just come up as owner, so yeah, I think you. Hello? No? Okay. No.
I see a couple of questions in here about things like CNC technologies and so on, and I actually love that kind of use case. I think there's a huge amount of value. I see a lot of that. I know Coda Aviation out of Nanaimo is absolutely fantastic and has been able to access all kinds of for good reason, great reasons, all kinds of government grants and programs, and they seem to be doing extremely well. I don't know them as well personally. We run into each other at conferences, but I'm incredibly inspired by the rate that I've seen them grow over the last little while. So I absolutely see an immense amount of value there. And as well, I mean, just to be clear, technologies and capabilities. There's also just other types of organizations that might need this kind of information if they want to grow, right down to other economic organizations within communities that might want to learn about this at some point in the future. But I mean, that's getting a little farther, I think, than Joanna wants to go. But I think right now I look at people that are making deals like Malahat Nation here made a deal with Talus, I think a year or two ago. And I look at a lot of the programs that are out there and available and the tax incentives by government and all the rest of it that might be applicable to them at some point in the future.
Absolutely, Carl. And as Carl mentioned, we are open to having folks that are, obviously building companies, but are also like other business structures, ECDEV units, et cetera, that might want to dive into these topics for sure. So if you, and I know we're at time, hopefully you've answered all your questions. If you've got more questions, please send us an email. We're more than happy to answer any questions you might have about ARC training or ARC services or even about ARC demo days. You can send me an email. You can go straight to the QR code and go apply if you're so inclined or interested in getting the support. And we'd love to meet you. We really appreciate all of you joining us today and sticking around for the full hour. Thank you to Carly and Ariel and Carl for being here. And of course, Carl for jumping in and answering some of these very specific questions around the industry. And so, yeah, very much looking forward to meeting everybody. And we'll be sharing this recording and PDF afterwards.
Awesome. Thanks so much, you guys. Really appreciate that.
Bye, everybody.